Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gangana Sadrisham Tattvamasyadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimalam Achalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami.
Hello, welcome. These teachings are from a work assigned to Adi Sankaracharya, which is called Aparokshanabuthi, or self-realization, or direct perception of the self, of the Atman. And it is an introduction to Vedanta. It speaks about Raja Yoga with a Vedantic vision. So listen very carefully to these teachings, reflect upon them, then meditate upon these teachings so that they can bear fruit in your heart. May you all find freedom. Continuing and coming back to the verse 125. So the aspirant should carefully practice this meditation that reveals his natural bliss until, being under his full control, it arises spontaneously and in an instant when called into action. So this practice continues until it becomes the natural state. Means that before it becomes natural, there is effort involved in bringing all these realities. And then he, the best among yogis, having attained to perfection, because only the best of the yogis can put all these things into practice and maintain it and reap the fruits of it, which is liberation. So the best among yogis, having attained to perfection, becomes free from all practices. The real nature of such a man never becomes an object of the mind. So practice continues until self-realization or God realization. It doesn't end before that. So this is important. So not before self-realization, but until self-realization, spiritual practices continue. The real nature of such a man never becomes an object of the mind or speech, meaning when self-realization is there, when he realizes Brahman, he will not be able to speak about it because it is beyond words. While practicing samadhi, while practicing all these previous described steps, there appear unavoidably many obstacles. And these obstacles are about resistance from the illusory self, from the illusory character. There's a lot of resistances to maintain its illusion. You need to be aware of this. So while practicing samadhi, there appear unavoidably many obstacles, such as lack of inquiry, not questioning what is deemed reality and what isn't, idleness, desire for sense pleasure, sleep, dullness, distraction, tasting of joy. Tasting of joy is also an obstacle, because when you taste the joy of meditation, mind starts craving for more, and you end up searching for that experience instead of the ultimate realization. So if joy comes, just continue, don't get attached to it. And the sense of blankness. I'm doing nothing. One desiring the knowledge of Brahman should slowly get rid of such innumerable obstacles. So each of these obstacles, as they arise, you have to observe them as for what they are, an obstacle, and do your level best to overcome it. While thinking of an object, the mind verily identifies itself with that. And while thinking of a void, it really becomes blank. Whereas by the thought of Brahman, it attains to perfection. So one should constantly think of Brahman to attain perfection. Brahman or God, it is same perfection attained. Different, how do you say this? Conceptions, but the same perfection. So if it is just the void, like many embrace as the void, it's just void, it is nothing, is lifeless. So Brahman is fullness, void is emptiness. So yes, in the beginning, as you discard all that which is not real, only a void remains. But that is pure life, that is pure consciousness, that is Brahman. It is not void, it is fullness that needs to be recognized. And only with that direction towards Brahman can it be recognized. In the same, everything is God, and attainment with that God leads you to the same perfection. Those who give up this supremely purifying thought of Brahman live in vain and are on the same level with beasts, because they do not aspire liberation. So if you give up this purifying thought of Brahman, that which enables you to ascend to Brahmic consciousness, it's having this body and this understanding, or just being an animal is the same, because it brings the same fruits. So the thought of Brahman or the thought of God again. Blessed indeed are those virtuous persons who at first have this consciousness of Brahman and then develop it more and more. They are respected everywhere. And to do this, they must be virtuous person, must have developed these virtues, and blessed. Remember, only by God's blessing this may unfold. Only those in whom this consciousness of Brahman, being ever present, grows into maturity, attain to the state of ever-existent Brahman, and not others who merely deal with words. So just speaking about Brahman and not having its realization, sporadically and then continuously, these are just words, they lead nowhere. So only those in whom this consciousness, being ever present, grows into maturity, becomes continuous, absolute. Only these attain Brahman, and not those who just speak of Brahman. Only those persons who are only clever in discussing about Brahman, but have no realization, and are very much attached to worldly pleasures, are born and die again and again in consequence of their ignorance. So speaking about Brahman only doesn't bring liberation. It just continues dying and taking birth like any other normal human being or animal. So have no realization and are very much attached to worldly pleasures. So they are not working on their attachments. Just talking about Brahman, just talking about realization and how it is easy and you just do this and do that. and maintain their attachments. They continue to take births and die again like any other human being or animal. The aspirant after Brahman should not remain a single moment without the thought of Brahman, just like Brahma, Sanaka, Sukha, and others, the first beings. They are always tuned with Brahman. So the aspirant should attain that level of steadiness and should not remain a single moment without the thought of Brahman or without the thought of God, depending if you're seeking God realization according to your more devotional characteristics or self-realization. But it is the same result. So the mind should not be kept empty of the presence of the thought of Brahman or God. The nature of the cause inheres in the effect and not vice versa. So through reasoning it is found that in the absence of the effect, the cause as such also disappears. So this talks about the disappearance of duality, the cause being Brahman, the effect being also Brahman, only Brahman exists, so both disappears as in the sense of what is observed and what is the observer, and only Brahman remains, only the observer. Then that pure reality, Brahman, which is beyond speech alone, remains. This should be understood again and again, verily through the illustration of earth and the pot. So by the disappearance of cause and effect, only that pure reality, Brahman, remains. So like the illustration of earth and the pot and the snake and the rope, only the rope remains, only earth remains. In this way alone, there arises in the pure-minded a state of awareness of Brahman, which is afterwards merged into Brahman. So in this way, as it was described until now, it arises the pure mind state of awareness of Brahman, and then this awareness merges into Brahman. And this is the end of duality into oneness. One should first look for the cause by the negative method and then find it by the positive method, as ever inherent in the effect. So one should first look for the cause by the negative method, looking for the cause by the negative method, by negating the effect. This is not real, this is not real, this is not real. And with this is looking for the cause, which is Brahman, by negating the effect, which is the phenomenal world. And then find it by the positive method, by affirming Brahman, the reality of Brahman alone. One should verily see the cause in the effect and then dismiss the effect altogether. What then remains, the sage itself becomes. So this is a slight different, but it is the same. Instead of negating the effect, the phenomenal world, see Brahman in the effect, see just Brahman everywhere. And then dismiss the phenomenal world altogether because it is Brahman. What then remains, the sage himself becomes Brahman. A person who meditates upon a thing with great assiduity and firm conviction becomes that very thing. This may be understood from the illustration of the wasp and the worm. The wise should always think with great care of the invisible, the visible and everything else as his own self, which is consciousness itself. Eyes closed, eyes open, everything is the self alone. So maintaining always this thought. Having reduced the visible to the invisible, the wise should think of the universe as one with Brahman. Thus alone will he abide in eternal felicity with the mind full of consciousness and bliss. So reducing the visible, the phenomenal world, to the invisible, to Brahman. The wise should think of the universe as one with Brahman. The wise should think of the phenomenal world as Brahman itself, as one with Brahman, as Brahman itself. Thus has been described Raja Yoga, consisting of these steps mentioned until now. With this is to be combined Hatha Yoga, for the benefit of those whose worldly desires are partially attenuated. So those whose worldly desires are partially attenuated should be coupled with Hatha Yoga to help them to move faster. For those whose mind is completely purified, this Raja Yoga alone is productive of perfection. Purity of mind, again, is speedily accessible to those who are devoted to the teacher and the deity. Again, in this end, everything comes together. The devotional part to the teacher, to God. So this purity of mind is accessible to these ones. Those who have not this devotion to the teacher and to God, purity of mind takes a long time until they reach this state, of course. So for those whose mind is completely purified, this Raja Yoga alone is productive of perfection. Until then, so that this brings the highest fruits, this purity of mind should be conquered by serious and hard work. And here ends Aparokshanabuthi, self-realization. This teaching is intermediary to advanced. It makes this transition from duality to oneness, and that is the purpose of spiritual practice, spiritual disciplines. That is self-realization. May you take the best out of it. May you all reach perfection.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.